My name is Rachel Egbert, and this presentation is on the evolution of tigers. Let's start with an introduction. Tigers face an era of rapid environmental change. This is most commonly found in the development of landscapes, which used to be their habitat. For example, building of infrastructure, farming, and plots for livestock. This mostly comes in the form of deforestation. Tiger population has decreased by 95% from 1900, where there were 100,000 individuals, and now there are only 5,500 left, and that's after a 2,000 individual increase. Tigers diverged from other big cats 10.8 million years ago. This allowed them to develop the characteristics we are able to recognize as a tiger. The unique stripe patterns, which are like a human fingerprint, the powerful muscular builds that allow them to jump up to 13 feet in the air, satellite-like ears with a spot on the back. Usually they're white, but in this example, they're less than that. And also the retractable claws, which allow them to keep their claws sharp and ready for action. Now on to the origins. The oldest known tiger skull is believed to be 2.55 to 2.16 million years old when it was found in the Jiangsu Autonomous County in Gansu, China. The researchers identified important features found in the skull which are found in modern tigers. These include an enlarged cranial structure to hold a bigger brain, prominent sagittal crests, which allow the masseter muscle to connect the top skull and the jaw, and also allow the tiger to have a bite force up to 1,500 psi, along with carcinal teeth. Another study was done where the genomes of tigers were compared to lions and snow leopards. It was found that these big cats share similar genes with different levels of expression. And this applies for leopards, jaguars, and other big cats. They just have different levels of expression. The one exception to this is with lions and tigers having a similar prominence in body muscles. And now to the taxonomic controversies. Traditionally, there are 9 subspecies: Bali, Javan, Caspian, Bengal, Amur, Indo-Chinese, South China, and Malaysian. This is based on skull morphometrics and the coat patterns, which change based on their environment. A group of molecular biologists came in and tested the mitochondrial DNA from the tigers, since it is passed down from mother to offspring all the way up ancestrally, and they figured out that there was a minimal genetic differentiation between the subspecies. And because of that finding, they suggested that there were only 2 subspecies, mainland tigers and island tigers. Well, another group of researchers did a genome-wide SNP analysis and showed that the molecular biologists were wrong. They found 6 distinct subspecies, each with their own unique evolutionary history. A good example of a taxonomic controversy is with the recent discovery of potential Javan tiger hair samples. In 2019, a local Javan resident reported that they saw a Javan tiger, which would be a miracle, since Javan tigers have been extinct for more than 75 years. And so, in 2024, a group of researchers went in and collected the sample, the DNA, from the supposed sightings location. In their research, they did a lot of tests and concluded that it was, in fact, a Javan tiger. Yay! But everybody was very suspicious about this, and a different group of researchers this year reanalyzed it. It showed in their research that it was probably not a Javan tiger, but it was a Sumatran tiger, as seen from the figure in their paper on the right. The green is the test sample, and it is more closely related and connected to the Sumatran tiger area than the Javan tiger area. They unfortunately were unable to definitively assign it as a Sumatran tiger instead of a Javan, because there is a lack of genetic lineage of Javan tigers because they have been extinct for so long. There are several morphological and genetic adaptations across the subspecies. The most notable one is the size and coat color that the different subspecies have based on environmental factors. The largest of the subspecies is the Amur, or the Siberian tiger, which weighs more than 660 pounds and can get anywhere from 8 to 10 feet. The smallest, on the other hand, which is a good example, is on the bottom right-hand corner, on a good day is 310 pounds. Literally half the size of the Amur tiger. This is because of a vast difference in habitat. The Amur tiger has the extensive Siberian territory, even though they're now contained only in northern China, southeastern Russia, and northern North Korea, while the Sumatran tiger only has the island of Sumatra of Indonesia left. This follows the Bergerman's rule, which explains how animals, most commonly mammals, that are larger oftentimes live in a colder climate, and animals, most commonly mammals, that live in a warmer climate are a lot smaller. But to every rule, there is an exception, and the Bengal tiger is just that. Bengal tigers live on the Indian subcontinent, which is hot and humid and has monsoons, but it's the second largest tiger subspecies. This is because of an effect of natural selection. And you can't talk about Bengal tigers without talking about white tigers, since the Bengal subspecies is the only one that can have a white coat color. And it's not albinoism, which is a common misconception, it's because of a mutation in the SLC45A2 gene, which causes these tigers to have white fur with dark brown spots and blue eyes, which is often lost in normal orange cubs, even though they're born with blue eyes. The white coat is a reduction in fitness in the wild because they're unable to hunt as well as a normal tiger. This is because ungulate prey, like Chital deer, have a hard time with the separation of orange, red, and brown, which allows the normal tiger to blend in, but they can see white very well and often run away, which decreases their chances from 1 in 10, which is a normal orange tiger, to much less. Because of this reduction in fitness, white tigers are extinct in the wild and are very rare and often leads to inbreeding. There actually is a tiger with Down syndrome because of inbreeding. How did we get those subspecies? Well, this is due to geographic isolation. There are physical barriers which impeded the tigers, most commonly the Himalayas and the Brahmaputra and Mekong rivers. There's also the Toba supervolcano, which is considered to be the largest volcanic eruption in all of human history, when it erupted about 75-ish thousand years ago. It also is maintained by scientists that it sent the planet into an ice age, the Pleistocene Ice Age to be specific. This is when the sea levels dropped drastically, up to 400 feet. This exposed new land bridges and new tiger territory for them to explore. The tigers did explore this new area and did populate it. But unfortunately, the sea rose again to current levels and it trapped them in the islands of Indonesia. This is how we got the Bali, Javan, and Sumatran tigers. The Javan and the Bali's tigers are extinct now, partially because of the smallness of their habitat. And we can't talk about extinct subspecies without talking about the Caspian tiger. The Caspian tiger lived in a very unique habitat. Instead of hot and humid or cold, they had reed beds, riparian forests, and deserts, which separated them from the other subspecies. They also had to gain unique adaptations because of this unique habitat. Some of these include elongated legs and pale coats to more blend in with the landscape. They were geographically isolated from the other subspecies around 10,000 years ago due to mountain ranges and thousands of miles from the other subspecies. Unfortunately, these tigers are extinct, like I said. Central Asia, including Turkey, Iran, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan, all lost their Caspian tigers within the 1940s through the 1970s. Unfortunately, the last sighting of a Caspian tiger was in 1979 on the Amu Darya River. The Caspian tiger, though, has been considered for de-extinction because the Caspian and the Amur tigers share very similar genomes, but there are some ethical issues to this. Now let's talk about anthropogenic disruption, or human-based disruption. 93% of habitat loss has occurred since 1900, which relates to the number of tigers as seen on the graph on the right. They have as much space left as the size of Texas. Fragmentation is a huge blow and increases the chances of genetic diversity loss and inbreeding, which includes the reduction in litter size, even though tigers already have a litter size of 2 to 4 on average, increased mortality, and a compromised immune system, making them more susceptible for illness. They also have selective pressures to increase nocturnality and altered hunting patterns, meaning they're less likely to want to be out when we are. But what else has an effect on the future evolutionary trajectories of tigers? Well, climate change, for example, shows a dramatic shift in habitat. The Sundarbans, which is shown on the right, is estimated to lose 96% of its habitat for tigers by 2050. This is because the sea levels are expected to rise in the Bay of Bengal to get rid of it. Also, the Korean pine forest, which is where the Amur tiger lives, is also crucial for their prey because they need to feel like they're safe. But it can't all be bad, right? Conservation genomics has shown an enhanced monitoring system for tigers. One of these includes multi-individual gene sequencing. This is because it can identify rare alleles which are worth preserving, which do not include white tigers, populations requiring genetic rescue because they're at high chances for inbreeding, and also because they want to maximize genetic diversity while also minimizing inbreeding. A second example, which isn't listed here, is with the use of camera traps. In conclusion, the evolution of tiger is a great example of how geographic isolation and climatic forces sculpt biodiversity along with the evolutionary trajectories of them. It also is a good example of showing at which the speed of anthropogenic pressures can change evolution. We're seeing evolution occur very rapidly instead of over a long period of time. Also, the Paleocene climate change cycles led to isolation and divergence, which we talked about when the geographic isolation areas. Unfortunately, 3 subspecies have been lost in the last 100 years, which is not the best. Also, if we are going to save these majestic tigers, they rely on us protecting them, their prey, and their habitat. They also rely on us to maintain their evolutionary processes. We cannot let tigers fall into a distant memory. And here are the references for this presentation.